Alright, so this part is just going to cover the character creation. We have a blank project here, a blank blueprint project. And the only thing that it has no starter content, it's set for desktop. And it's scalable 3D 2D. Not really important for our tutorial. You probably could get this to work on any platform, but I just wanted to show you guys the setup for the character in case you're really new and you want to see how that works. So I've got nothing in my project right now. Let's get started by setting up a blueprint class, character, and we're going to call this player BP. So this is going to be the player that we're going to be using. And I'm going to open that up. In the viewport, we're going to have a capsule component. It's pretty tall right now. Let's make it short, just so we get a nice round looking character. And the other thing is I don't have any visuals to represent my character, so I'm just going to set it to, well, uncheck hidden in game so we can see these lines. And I'm also going to add a little cone and rotate this cone and shrink it down a bit. We're making a nose for our character. That way we can see where he's facing as he moves. And we also want to make sure that it's set to no collision under the collision settings. So this nose doesn't have any collision of its own. It's not going to trigger enemies or anything like that. We're not going to have any in this tutorial, but just for future reference, we want it to be a visual. Nothing more than that. We're going to compile and save. Now, I want to set up some basic input. I want my character to move right and left, and I want him to jump. So let's go to Edit, Project Settings, Input, and under Axis Mapping, I'm going to be creating a move right, left. You can call this whatever you want, but this is going to be the way the blueprints are picking up your basic input. And I want the right arrow key for right movement. And you can see the scale is set to 1, which is fine. I'm going to add another one. And this one's going to be left. I'm just shrinking the gamepad so I can get to the keyboard. It's all a bunch of categories listed one under the other. I want keyboard input. Left is going to be -1, so it's the opposite. If you set it to 1, they're just going to be the same thing. And action mapping. And I'm going to call this jump input. And I'm going to use the space bar just to keep it simple. So we've got right arrow for right movement, left arrow for left movement, and space for jumping. Now we're back at our player blueprint. Under event graph, we're just going to add the inputs that we just created. So move right, left, and we're going to get the axis event, not the axis value. And from there, we're going to add movement input. This is pretty standard when it comes to setting up characters, and we're going to plug the axis value into the scale value. And the direction we're going to go with for now is X. It's a 2D game after all, that's all we need. And we also want the character to be able to jump, so we called a jump input. And on pressed, we want the player to jump. This is a pre-made functionality in Unreal. Compile and save. So now we have a character that's going to move right when we press the right arrow, left when we press the left arrow, and he's going to jump when we press the jump button. And all the information for movement is over in the movement component, so you've got jump velocity and all that other stuff. You can play around with these as you like. Now the other thing we're going to need, of course, is a camera so we can see what's going on. So I'm going to add a spring arm. This is essentially holding our camera. And we're going to add a camera as well. And the camera should be the child of the spring arm. So if I were to, in this case, select the spring arm, go into viewport, press E for rotation, and rotate, the camera should go along with the spring arm. And I'm also going to tilt it up so it's kind of looking down on our player and we can see what's going on. So now when I press, whoops, I can't really play here. But the point is we've got a camera that's attached to our character. And a couple of things that I want to do. I want the character to be facing the direction of movement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select our movement component. And I'm going to go all the way down to character movement rotation settings, and I'm going to select orient rotation to movement. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the player blueprint, and I'm going to go to pawn, use controller rotation yaw, and uncheck that so we don't have any conflicts. So now our character is going to be rotating in the direction of movement. And the last thing we want to do is we don't want the camera to be spinning along with the character. So I'm going to uncheck do collision testing because that's annoying. And I'm also going to uncheck inherit pitch yaw roll. These settings make the spring arm essentially follow the same rotation that's applied to the character. So when the character rotates, the spring arm is going to rotate with him. I don't really want that to happen. I want the camera to constantly be facing the same direction. And collision testing is, it tries to essentially detect when the character is being blocked. I don't really care about that right now, so I'm just going to uncheck that. Compile and save, and now we've got a basic functional character. Now at this point, you would create a game mode blueprint, because if we press play, we just get a floating camera. You want to create a game mode and get the player to spawn and all that. We're not actually going to do that because of some special restrictions that we have to follow in order to use splines. So with that, the player is set up, and I'm going to actually load him into the level in the part concerning splines just to make sure that the people following only the spline tutorial know exactly what's going on. Alright.